It may have taken almost 8 months, but Saints finally have a win on the road. And what a goal to earn the points. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Total Saints podcast. I'm Martin Stark, and each week I'm joined by our panel of Saints experts to reflect on the last 7 days following Southampton Football Club. Coming up this week on the pod, reaction to that first away win of the season against Watford, the cup exit at Chelsea, and we look ahead to the visit of Aston Villa to St Mary's on Friday evening. First of all, let me introduce you to our guests this week. Owner of Saints Web, Steve Grant. How's your week in the sun been, Steve?
Yeah, nice and hot. Been to a couple of cricket matches since we last spoke. Two more crushing England wins, and obviously yesterday's one was particularly satisfying against Australia.
Are you able to fit some work in between the cricket?
Yeah, I've been working during the week. So yeah, all absolutely fine. Yeah, we're starting early tomorrow to make sure I can get myself down to Sharjah for the Sri Lanka game tomorrow night.
Fantastic. Also with us is writer of the blog League One -10. That's Glenn de la Cour. You were at the game yesterday. How's your throat, Glenn?
Yeah, sore. Yeah, it's just 90 minutes of yelling, and got a bit of a sore throat. Capped off a good week. I had a week off last week, so I didn't really do much. And last week, on the last podcast, I did a shout out to the Southampton music venues. I went to another Southampton institution this week, which was IKEA. It's a bit like Dignitas. People go there to die prematurely. It's horrendous.
Did you get
horrendous. No, I didn't do the meatballs. It's just a soul crushing experience. But
did you take my advice of using all of those?
Using all the shortcuts. Yeah. Tried. No, it was kind of a let's just get from A to B and wander around. But I dragged my son along, so that was good fun just to watch his misery. So by comparison, I was positively cheerful all the way around.
Tell me that you bought the mini dime bars though. You came away with those, right?
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, £4.95 just to have all your teeth fall out. Lovely.
Also with us is the Athletics dedicated Saints reporter Dan Sheldon. How's your week been, Dan?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, really good. I had a week off prior to that, so it was good kind of getting back into the swing of things, and busy week with Chelsea and Watford, 2 away trips, but yeah, really good fun, thank you.
Good. And of course, the biggest hello and thank you is always reserved to our patrons wherever you might be listening this week. It's all very much appreciated. Welcome to episode 174 of the Total Saints podcast.
This is the Total Saints podcast with Martin Stark, Steve Grant, Glenn de la Cour, and the Athletics' Dan Sheldon.
Saints have their first away win since March with a 1-0 victory at Watford. Glenn, we mentioned you were there to watch this one. What were your thoughts on the game?
We made every weather of it. My word, did we? We should have won by a lot bigger margin than what we did win by. First half in particular, I think Ralph said it in his interviews after the game, should have been 3 or 4. The fact that we finished the game with only having had one shot on target is both ridiculous and it's somewhat telling given the openings that we created and subsequently didn't get on target. Brilliant goal, out of nothing. There are moments when you attack and you get excited because you think there's something that's coming. Well, that was just out of nowhere. He was away from the goal and then he suddenly side-footed it in the top corner, and it's a stunning goal. And Che Adams is summed up in a nutshell by the header he then managed to bounce over the bar with his nose or whatever it was straight afterwards, which would have made it a lot more comfortable. I know we've thrown away a lot of leads in the past sort of couple of years, but 2 goals against Watford would have been enough to sort of canter through the second half.
What's the away experience like at Vicarage Road?
It's a nice little ground. It's very compact. I mean, it's funny. It's been a number of years, at least 20 years since I went there last, and it wouldn't surprise me if you told me they've rebuilt all 4 stands. It didn't sort of jog any memory at all. Maybe I was drunk the last time I went, but no, it was. You're away in the corner as you tend to be in most away grounds. But I have to say, the Saints fans were very, very vocal from the first minute to the last, and it was. I can't imagine it was anything but a positive thing for the players to be out there with that backing. So it was a very enjoyable day out.
4 changes for the Saints lineup. James Ward-Prowse coming back in. Dan, you pretty much called that. How did you think he did on his return?
Yeah, I thought you can't be like kind of too critical. Southampton won at the end of the day. I think I was semi-surprised to see him subbed off because it's not something you normally see, Ward-Prowse leaving a Premier League pitch early. But at the same time, I was disappointed that Diallo didn't start. I was really kind of mixed about the whole Prowsey-Diallo thing. I couldn't quite make up my mind on what I wanted Ralph to do. But as a whole, I thought Prowsey was okay. I don't think he did anything kind of amazing, but I don't think he did anything pretty woeful, sort of as you'd expect. If someone that hasn't played football in a little while since the international break came back into the team, and yeah, I mean he's got a good partnership with Romeo anyway. I think I'm kind of leaning towards I wish Diallo started because I don't know, I've just been so impressed with him over the last few weeks. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn with Prowsey and how he did and how he got on.
It's an interesting debate, isn't it? Should he have to fight for his place in the team, or does he come straight back in because he's captain? And you're sort of 50-50 on that, Dan.
Yeah, I just think I don't know. It's a really weird one with Prowsey because he embodies, like, if you speak to all the players and they're like, he just is Mr. Southampton. He embodies everything that Ralph wants from a player on the pitch. But I don't think that should necessarily guarantee you a starting spot. But it would have been a massive call if for Ralph to drop a player that he hasn't dropped in God knows how long in the league, who was also his captain. That would just send, it'd be a big message, wouldn't it? And they just gave him a new fresh terms on a 5-year deal. So I think it would have taken a massive call for Ralph to make, and he's probably, of the two, dropping Diallo is always going to be easier than dropping Prowsey. And I'm not saying he's taken the easy route out, but what he's done was the easier, less damaging option, I would say. Like Diallo being dropped, Diallo will kind of accept that and accept his role in the team. If you drop Prowsey, it sends a completely different message.
It's a great problem to have, though. Started on the front foot yesterday, as so often, pretty much set the tone for the game. What were your thoughts, Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could have been 1-0 up straight from kickoff, much like last time. Last time we had fans at Vicarage Road. Not quite as quick, but it was not far off, was it? I think when we put that cross in and Cathcart's almost stuck it past his own keeper. Yeah, I mean, we were right at it from the start, and yeah. I think. I mean, as we've said, we obviously created so many chances, and I mean, one thing that does kind of get a little bit distorted when you talk about shots on target. Obviously, the on target numbers only count when the ball actually reaches the goal. I think we had 5 or 6 of our 12 or 13 shots that were blocked. I mean, certainly second half, Armstrong had 1, maybe 2 that were deflected, that looked on target, and I think Romeo had 1 first half as well that was at least on target. Probably not strong enough to trouble the keeper, but it was at least going to be on target and making the keeper do something at least. So yeah, I think one of the issues we've kind of spoken about is when we've created chances and just not had that clinical edge, and that was kind of illustrated perfectly, wasn't it? And we got away with it to an extent in that Watford were that bad that they only really created 2 chances all game. And it's a frustrating one, isn't it? Because we kind of had a similar thing with Adams a year or 2 back, where he was kind of, you always had the impression that he was snatching at shots. And while I don't think Armstrong is snatching at shots, I think he's deliberately taking shots really early, because in the Championship that served him so well, because you get that fraction more space between you and a defender.
Yeah.
So you can kind of line your shot up a fraction of a second earlier, and also the keepers there down at that level aren't anywhere near as good. So if you get it on target, you're basically probably going to score. Whereas at this level, you don't have you're being closed down a fraction of a second quicker. So therefore, he's not quite getting them on target. I mean, you saw those shots that he was taking sort of on the turn, on the edge of the area, 2 or 3 of them that flashed within a foot of the post. So it's fine margins, and I think, I mean, his performance yesterday was excellent, and I think if he carries on like that, and I think the luck factor, I think will kind of turn eventually, and he'll kind of do what Adams does and go on a little run of scoring those chances rather than putting them just the wrong side of the post.
Let's hope so. Glenn, it felt like we handled Watford really well. They never looked like getting back into the game, certainly from what I've seen. Is that fair?
Pretty much. The selection of Kyle Walker-Peters at left back was interesting because Ismaila Sarr is their best player, and he certainly is the biggest threat. I mean, as we touched on last week, Josh King didn't notice him all game.
Hat-trick hero last week, wasn't he? And then
didn't notice him.
Yeah.
Salisu just, you talk about in the pocket, didn't. Josh King honestly didn't see him. Not a thing. Ismaila Sarr was interesting because he did cause a few problems, but in the main, Walker-Peters handled him really, really well. And eventually, Sarr just resorted to diving about. Every time he couldn't get the better of Walker-Peters, he just dived about. He did that quite a few times, and it was getting embarrassing in the end. And I really do wish that referees would clamp down on it a little bit. But I have to say, Walker-Peters was excellent going the other way as well, because he was happy to go inside and out. He was crossing the ball with his left foot. Okay, it wasn't always a lot of quality on the crosses, but he has obviously worked. He's obviously either been told or worked out that he can't just cut inside every time. Otherwise, he's not going to get in the team at left back. And I think we all know now he's not going to get in the team at right back. So he has got to. He has got to improve on that, and I thought he was our best player yesterday. I know people have sort of pointed at Tino and Salisu again, but I thought Walker-Peters was absolutely excellent yesterday, and he went a long way to shutting Watford down. Watford were very basic. They didn't really have a lot. A couple of times we fell for the same tactic, which was Watford line up all their players on our right and then boot it down the left to where Sarr is, and you've got 20 players over one side of the pitch and 2 over the other side, and it annoyed me that we got caught by it once, let alone twice. So that was that was kind of the limit of what Watford had. It was pinging the ball long early into space, and they're quite quick up front, but they honestly didn't create anything much until that chance in the last minute. I mean, we had to be aware of giving the ball away when we were attacking, and that includes corners that came in that went straight to the goalkeeper, because
that counter attack was where the one was cleared off the line was from our corner, wasn't it? Yeah,
a couple of times we gave away soft possession trying to play a through ball, right on the edge of the box sort of thing, and we got caught a couple of times. But a couple of years ago, when our sort of scramble defence, when we're all trying to get back, was dodgy, but we seem to be a lot better at that now, and a lot of that is down to the pace we've got in the back four now, especially Salisu, who's just getting better and better with every game.
Let's talk about Che Adams first then, and the goal. First league goal of the season, made it look effortless. But Dan, you were also impressed with his work off the ball.
Yeah, I think Glenn will probably, I hope he will attest to this. He didn't stop running.
No.
Kind of all afternoon, he was just non-stop, like absolutely, he was relentless in his pressing and his closing down, and yeah, his work off the ball was just as impressive as his goal for me. I think the goal was obviously just, a touch of absolute class. And he's a bit weird like that, isn't he? Like, he'd do nothing for 10 games and then just like miss all the chances you'd expect him to score, and then pull that out of the hat. And, if you gave him, like if you said to do that again, I doubt he probably could. The way he just turned so quickly and picked his spot and put it beyond Foster was just exceptional. But it was his whole round game was just, for me, superb. I thought he kind of had a bit of a point to prove coming into it. It was a big opportunity for him and Adam Armstrong. Brozier was injured. He's kind of replaced them, and many think that he's probably their most dangerous attacker, and his goals in recent weeks probably suggest he is. So one of them, they both needed to come in and put in decent performances, and Adams has got the goal, and he's followed it up with his finish against Chelsea, which was perhaps more instinctive, whereas this one was just it was just absolute class. I've just seen it on a replay now as I'm scrolling through Twitter. So I was really impressed with how he kind of followed up that goal at Stamford Bridge with his whole round performance. And you can see why Ralph, does stick with him, because, Ralph is very big on work off the ball. And with Adams, you're going to get that. He's not shy of kind of putting a shift in and leading from the front.
Ralph did say after the game, though, he does make the difficult ones and he misses the easy ones. And I know you referenced that header, Steve. And he does go on his streaks, doesn't he? It's either a drought or it's a run of goals. So let's hope it's the latter. But were you impressed, Steve, yesterday?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back at the replay of that header, I think to class it as an absolute sort of scandalous, glaring miss is probably quite harsh, because it's absolutely fired at him, and it's at a height that's one of those where you got to make a split-second decision of whether you're heading it or whether you're probably going to put some other body part in the way. I think probably heading it was, as the end result has shown, it was the wrong decision. He probably should have basically just tried to stick his shin on it, or his knee, or even his thigh or his chest or something. Just divert it from the position he was in, because there was so much pace on the ball across that actually heading it, he kind of had to contort his body and head it, and there was no way that he was going to be able to have any control over where the ball went. So I think sort of criticism for that one's a little bit harsh. I think Armstrong's one where he had the free header at the back post, I think was probably an easier chance to get on target, certainly.
So we should have put the game to bed in the first half, really. Glenn, was it more a case of poor finishing or poor decision making, or perhaps a bit of both?
A bit of both. I mean, we touched on the finishing, some of the decision making with the final ball. I dig out Nathan Redmond a lot. He had one of his frustrating games yesterday, where every sort of like attempted through ball was either underhit or overhit. It was underhit and got intercepted, or it was overhit and it ran out for a goal kick sort of thing. So he did a lot of really good stuff sort of further back, linking play and stuff like that, and he combined really well with Walker-Peters. But
I thought his crossing was good, actually.
Yeah,
quite a few on his left foot as well.
Yeah. It seems to be so. You've got two right-footed players down there. You can't. I mean, the last time we tried that was that Wolves game when we were crap at home, where everyone was cutting inside all the time. We didn't have any width on the left-hand side. So both him and Walker-Peters were happy to put the crossover, but there wasn't. Some of the crosses. There wasn't a lot of quality on them. Elyounoussi didn't produce a great amount from the right hand side either. So there were issues in both, but in both finishing and creating. But we did create enough chances to have scored more goals than we did. And and whilst I never really felt like Watford were going to score, it took a good save in the end from McCarthy to stop them nicking what would have been a ridiculous point, or a ridiculous 2 points dropped as far as we were concerned. But all's well that ends well. Got there in the end.
Do you think it's something that is going to cost us going forward, Dan, this inability to convert all the chances that we seem to be creating at the moment?
I think you could probably argue it already has cost Southampton throughout the season, and it, until they... You sense that in one game they're just going to put 3 or 4 past the team, and it will just kind of happen like that. But I said to Steve before we started recording, I think Watford were so bad at the weekend, and I don't want to be negative. Like, I'm probably negative enough. I don't want to be any more negative than I already am. But a better team would punish Southampton. A better team would create more chances than Watford did. Southampton can't afford to keep on wasting these chances. Ralph said they should have been 3 or 4-0 up at half time, and that was absolutely right. And then you're watching the second half, and I certainly watched the second half, and I was saying to my colleague Adam Leventhal, this will either be a draw or Saints will win 1-0, because they're not going to score another goal with all these chances they're missing. One thing I should probably just point out on that, though, is, as again I said to Steve, their run from October to now has been like super impressive. From the international break in October to now has been really impressive. So I don't think you can kind of criticise them too much for missed chances or whatever. They've played 3 times, won twice and drawn the other, against a decent, kind of always hard to beat Burnley. Although I say hard to beat Burnley, I mean, they've only just won their first game yesterday, but you kind of get what I'm saying. So I think, they will get punished for missed chances. And do I think they can carry on doing it? No, but it doesn't look like they're going to stop anytime soon.
Final word on the strikers then, Steve. Adams and Armstrong looking better as a pair yesterday. Where does Brozier fit into that mix when he's fully recovered? I mean, it's a nice problem for us to have. Does he come straight back in?
Christ knows. I mean, ultimately it depends. I mean, certainly looking forward to the weekend. Obviously, Friday night game, which gives Brozier less time, basically a day less to recover from his ankle injury. Realistically, if he doesn't train an awful lot this week, then at best he's going to be on the bench. And I mean, there's an argument that Adams and Armstrong have played well as a partnership in this game this weekend, and they don't deserve to have that broken up. I mean, I think you've got to kind of pick your poison sometimes. So it may well be that they do some analysis and work out where Villa's particular weaknesses defensively are. I mean, basically crosses into the box. Judging from what I've seen of them so far this season, they look absolutely pathetic against set pieces. So maybe Brozier is the option for that game if he's fit. But yeah, I mean, nice problem to have when you've got three strikers who are all playing well, even if they're not all necessarily scoring loads of goals. There is at least you can kind of justify the selection or non-selection of any of them.
And of course, one goal is always enough if you keep a clean sheet. 4th clean sheet of the season yesterday. I think we should spend a couple of minutes just on the back 5. I know we've mentioned it already, but looking better and better as the weeks go on, Glenn.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise that Walker-Peters was picked, but the way it panned out, because I mean, well, Perot had done nothing wrong, had he? But Walker-Peters played well in the cup game against Chelsea, albeit on the right-hand side. So he came back in. Yeah, I think the Salisu-Bednarek partnership is looking good, and I like what we did in the last 5 minutes when, we're going to talk about the Chelsea game in a minute. Lianco had a really good game as like the middle of the back 3 in that game, and he made a difference when he came on. It was only for sort of like 5 minutes, but we were under a little bit of pressure from Watford at the end, and he came on and did the job. So we barely mentioned Livramento, who was he's just turning it in every game at the moment. He was really, really good again. He had a bit of a challenge. I don't know who the Watford number 12 was. They brought him on at half time, but he was quicker than the guy who went off. So, but Livramento adapted his game. He didn't go charging forward as much because he knew that he had someone with similar pace to what he's got to look after at the other end. So he had another good game, and they do seem to be functioning a lot better as a unit. And long may it continue. You wouldn't have thought that a team that replaced basically its entire back 4 would sort of like gel this quickly and do this well, but it's good to see, and it's nice to have a bit more pace in the defence. It certainly is showing up as being more and more important as the games go on.
Is Lianco starting to win you over yet, Dan? Are you starting to see the value?
Yeah, he was very good against Chelsea, and his cameo at the weekend was impressive as well. I mean, I still kind of just chuckle about that performance at Sheffield because it was absolutely horrific. But he's bounced back really well. You can't criticise him. And yeah, I wasn't expecting that. When I saw him in the starting 11 against Chelsea, I thought, oh no, here we go. This is going to be really interesting. But yeah, he proved me wrong, and long may that continue. Just on the defence, one person I want to kind of single out because I think he still gets a serious amount of unfair criticism is Alex McCarthy. He in recent weeks when he's had to make a save, I know this is his job, blah blah blah, but when he's had to make a save, he has made some good stops, and the one yesterday was another good stop. As you say, that's 4 clean sheets now, and it's kind of amazing what happens when you back a goalkeeper, give him a new contract, and stop changing him every other week. That you actually get a bit of consistency and a decent level of performance. And I was thinking today, are there at the moment, are there 3 better goalkeepers in England than him? If Sam Johnston's getting into the last England squad, is McCarthy not further ahead of him? They got pumped 3-0 at the weekend, West Brom. So I'd actually quite like to see him rewarded for his form with an England call-up. Whether that happens, probably not, but I think he's certainly deserving of one.
And your thoughts on yesterday's back 5, Steve? McCarthy, obviously the save at the end we just mentioned with his legs, but everybody putting a shift in, I thought.
Yeah, pretty solid overall. I mean, I think with McCarthy, I mean that one in injury time was obviously the big one. Would have been interesting to see the reaction had the one that we cleared off the line actually gone in, because it looked like it was a bit of a soft shot right at the near post.
You mean a confidence thing? How they would have reacted to that?
Well, no, in terms of the reaction to whether McCarthy should have saved it.
Right, yeah.
Because it looked like it kind of squirmed through a little bit. But yeah, overall, the goalkeeping situation seems to have calmed down a little bit. I mean, obviously, we're not doing that fairly insane thing that we were doing. Was it that back end of last season? I've
Yeah.
lose track of time now when we were basically picking them for 2 games at a time and then switching them out just for seemingly someone's weird pleasure.
But also Ralph trying to style it out like it was normal. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. You know, why wouldn't you have 2 number ones that you swap in?
To be fair to him, Forster in the cup games he's played, and he obviously had nothing to do against Newport, but Sheffield United and Chelsea, he was excellent in both of those games. So there is also actually some genuine competition for places. So McCarthy also knows that. While it seems almost inevitable that Forster's off at the end of the season with his contract expiring and being one of our highest paid players, his performances are keeping McCarthy on his toes. And whereas if Forster had basically just phoned it in for those 2 cup games, then you wouldn't necessarily have seen the level of concentration from McCarthy, and therefore those sort of level of competent performances. I'm not sure I'd quite go as far as Dan as to say should be in the England squad. I think there's probably 5 or 6 keepers ahead of him. And
who?
Obviously you're going to have Pickford,
Pope, Ramsdale.
I think Pope's a funny one because he had.
I'm not sure on that.
I think in Southgate's mind, Pope is ahead of him because he's been in and around the squad for the last 4 or 5 years.
I don't think McCarthy will get called up, but I don't think there are 3 better goalkeepers than him right now at the moment in terms of form. I don't think Pope's playing better than McCarthy at the moment, but I don't think Alex will get called up because Southgate is weird with his selections. But I'm just saying, I don't think there are 3 better English goalkeepers than him.
Yeah,
I think Ramsdale's the big move. I've said this before. I don't particularly rate him, but he's having a good time of things with Arsenal at the moment. that save yesterday was absolutely ridiculous.
Ian Wright was raving about him, wasn't he, yesterday?
Ultimately, when Arsenal come up against someone half decent and start peppering shots at him, we'll see how he goes when there's one that's not quite going in the corner and he somehow his arm suddenly shrinks. We'll see what the media reaction is to that. But I think he's next in line at the moment, probably going ahead of Johnston at this stage.
So one thing I will say about Alex McCarthy is that his form went off the cliff when we got beat 9-0 with him in goal. And it certainly took him a long time to recover. Yeah,
weirdly, even though none of the goals were his fault, that was.
Well, he also came back from COVID as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he just seemed to lose it for quite a while, and he wasn't the same. He now seems to have got back to the levels that he was showing before that game.
I wonder if COVID had anything to do with that.
Oh, because he tested positive, didn't he?
Around the turn of the year,
drop out the team. Yeah.
I wonder whether he had any kind of long-term effect. I don't know. I'm just wondering. But yeah, his confidence definitely fell off a cliff, didn't it? But then. And you could say the same for Forster. It's just not helpful, is it, when you're you don't know if you're playing 1 week or not. It's a very weird thing for a goalkeeper. They're a different breed, aren't they, goalkeepers?
Absolutely.
They need an arm around their shoulder and they need to be told you're my number one. And that seems to have happened this year with Alex, or this season with Alex, with the new contract and stuff, which probably pays into some of the good saves he's making.
Final word on that game then, Glenn. Just with the benefit of hindsight, we know that Ralph picked the right team, but 4 changes. Was anybody surprised to see Walcott dropped and Carl Walker-Peters coming in?
I don't think so. I think with Brozier missing, there was a worry that if he'd just done a like-for-like replacement and we'd had one up plus Nathan Redmond, which we've been using recently, I think there was a bit of a worry that there wouldn't be a goal threat or much of a goal threat. But because he went with the 2 strikers, I think people were quite happy with that. I wasn't remotely surprised that Prowse came back in. I kind of always thought that was going to be the case. So no, I don't think there were many sort of surprises, and I don't think there were many sort of dissenting voices. I think there would have been more dissenting voices if Walcott had been picked after what happened against Chelsea, where of course he missed a penalty. Anyone can miss a penalty, but he didn't contribute a lot in that game and didn't contribute a lot in the last home game. So no, I think in the main it was a solid selection. I don't think anyone was sort of too upset about any of it.
Yeah, Walcott's not done a whole lot since his permanent deal, has he? Unfortunately,
no.
It's one of those. I think the spell of form he had when he first re-signed for us on loan before he got injured just before Christmas, I think that passage of play alone was probably that run and get 10 games or so was probably enough to earn him the permanent contract. And I don't think there were that many kind of dissenting voices on that, but it's now looking like that's probably going to be a fairly expensive millstone around our neck for the next 18 months, isn't it?
It's a bit similar to the Shane Long contract, because he had a little run of form just before he got given a 2-year deal. And Long and Walcott in many ways are quite similar in that they have a game that relies on their pace. And when you get into your 30s, that does begin to go a little bit, and then you've got to fall back on your footballing intelligence and your actual ability. And without being too rude about it, it's not a strength of either of them. And once the pace does begin to go a bit, you do sort of like wonder. And I think in both cases we've been a little bit over sentimental about it. But again, this is benefit of hindsight, because I was quite happy for us to sign Walcott. I have to admit, but as Steve said, it's not looking like the best piece of business right now, and we just have to hope that he can rediscover the form that he showed when he initially turned up.
Well, the good news is we're not relying on him, are we? There are people that can come in and do a job at the moment. We're 10 games in, which seems to me like a good time just to reflect on that first quarter of the season, if you like. Suddenly things, to me, seem to be a bit more rosy. Top half of the table, maybe by the next international break, if we pick up a win. Does it feel like the squad is starting to fulfill its potential, and are we bedding in now? There seems to be a better understanding of the plan. That's my assessment. I just wonder what you guys thought. How do you see it going so far, Steve?
I mean, yeah, we're getting there. I mean, let's be honest. We played a lot of the better sides in that first portion of the season before the second international break. Did all right, played okay, didn't really get the results that perhaps the performances deserved. Since then, yeah, we've played some of the weaker sides. Obviously, took advantage of Leeds missing 4 or 5 of their regular first choice with a fairly small squad. And yeah, we've got 7 points. Probably should be in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup based on the second half, at least at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday night. So yeah, we're looking a lot. It's looking a lot more promising. There's less for people to obviously complain about, which I think is usually the barometer that you're doing all right. I mean, we're now up to more than a point a game, and if you're getting more than a point a game, then you're absolutely fine. You're in no immediate danger. And we've still got this run of games where, I mean, Villa at home suddenly is looking a lot more winnable than it did probably a month ago.
Yeah.
Even though it's a Friday night and we're notoriously terrible on Friday nights. And then Norwich away, where, I mean, you would now say at this stage, if you don't go to Norwich and win, then that's a terrible result. And then obviously we come into a couple of harder ones again. But once we get past those 2 games, get to the final international break of the year, I think that's a really good point to sort of to assess things as a whole, because then you've played probably 2/3 of the teams once. So yeah, you've got a good handle on things at that stage. I mean, that December run looks pretty brutal. So I think now we're into that. Whereas obviously we knew we were playing catch up in the first portion of the season. Now we're in the middle of our right. Let's really put our foot down and accelerate and get loads of points in the bag, because we know that start of December, all of a sudden things start to get really difficult again up until the new year. And if we, at the end of the day, if we come out the other side of Christmas and the new year in 14th, 15th, I think that'll probably be reasonable.
Dan, what's your assessment been of the first 10 games of the season? You've been fairly positive, haven't you, I think, with everything. And certainly, as you mentioned earlier, that run since that last international break, there seem to be so many at the moment, it is really positive and something to focus on and take forward.
Absolutely. I think, as Steve said, Southampton didn't beat the teams that, and really expected them to, drawing that kind of first 6 or 7 games or whatever it was, but got a couple of really good results. Well, that result against West Ham looks really good now. Obviously, the Man City one and Man United one. So they picked up some surprise points there. And we all said, didn't we? The proof of the pudding will be how they do in the next run of matches. Let's judge them on that. Man City, Man United, Everton. That's not really their disco. The teams they're playing now is what they should be judged against. And so far, 7 points out of 9, they're doing a good job. Beat Villa next week, and it looks really good. Going into that international break, 10 points out of 12. You've got Norwich beyond that. And I mean, I would be amazed if Daniel Farke is still in a job come that game. So
Does he seem to like him?
Like, I'd be absolutely like mind blown if he. I mean, I watched the game earlier, and like it didn't sound great for him. So, and I think Stuart Webber coming out this week and kind of not really backing him, but backing him a little bit. It paints a picture, doesn't it? So, what Norwich are you going to get? It might be a new manager, Norwich. Who knows? But as Steve said, if you go there and you're not winning, then some questions need to be answered. But yeah, overall, I think it's been positive. It's been a good start. It's been a solid start. The first run of games, they could have picked up a few more points here or there if they'd taken their chances or whatever. But I was always kind of the opinion that let's judge them for this run of games, and so far they're excelling.
So far, so good. We need to talk about the cup game during the week. I guess it was always going to be about the lineups and the changes. A decent performance and penalties is the lottery anyway, isn't it? So we can't have too many complaints, Glenn, can we?
No, not at all. I thought we went there and we put in a decent showing. Chelsea's team was still very strong. It wasn't as if they had a team of 17-year-olds or whatever. They had a strong lineup. I think everyone looked at the 11 names that we put out and put it in the 4-2-2-2 formation. So it was a bit of a surprise when the game kicked off and you saw Walker Peters on the right-hand side, and it's like, hang on, what's he doing over there? And then you realise, well, I realised with horror that Jan Valery was playing centre-back. Oh my God, how's that going to work? And Lianco as well, was he going to put in another Sheffield United performance? But I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I thought we put in a really decent performance. Soft goal to concede, very simple goal just before half time. And you kind of think, okay, well, we'll probably go and get beat 2-0. But to get back into it in the second half, it set it up. And we had some really good chances to win it. Of course, they had chances as well. And Fraser Forster was brilliant, basically, backed up by some really good defending by the likes of Lianco and Salisu again. It would have been great. Will Smallbone had that chance with a header. That would have been a fantastic story if he'd managed to put that anywhere other than straight at the goalkeeper. And we had the two glorious chances in the 93rd minute where the goalkeeper again pulled off two really good saves from Lianco and Salisu. So it was, it was good, and it's hard to be negative about that performance. Some people have been, but it was, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and once you get the penalties, it's really weird how you can pick the players who you think are going to miss. And I knew Walcott would miss, and Smallbone looked terrified. But and that penalty was, I wouldn't have gone in with two goals on top of each other, would it? It was that high. But there you go. You win some, you lose some on the penalty shootouts, and we won in the last round. So I know Chelsea did as well, but your luck is going to run out at some point. But it was a good performance because teams have gone to Stamford Bridge and got absolutely hammered, haven't they? So yeah, I can't complain too much about it.
And Dan, you wrote about it this week, obviously, for The Athletic. I know you mentioned it on the pod last week. It's now going to be about keeping the rest of the squad happy. That is going to be a different challenge for Ralph.
Yeah, I think it naturally will be, because you've got players now that realistically might not play again until the FA Cup comes around in January, depending on kind of if everyone stays fit, or a player might trip over, break their ankle, and all of a sudden they're called on again. But there's a chance that some of these players may not start a game at least until then. And kind of I always thought with the Carabao Cup, it was always a nice little carrot to kind of dangle in front of them. You're not going to be starting in the Premier League, but you'll be playing in the Carabao Cup. But having said that, I think, as Glenn said, that performance was really good. Really, really good at Stamford Bridge, I thought. No one would have argued if Southampton had won that game, I don't think. And Ralph, I know kind of behind the scenes, he was like effusive about the whole thing. Like, he was really, really impressed by how they played. He obviously changed the system. They only had one training session to prepare for that Chelsea game. So I think that kind of speaks volumes of the kind of the levels the players brought onto the pitch. And I think, now, and obviously followed up by the Watford win, it's like a very healthy kind of positive, we're all in this together atmosphere. But my kind of big fear was that if results turn then the players who aren't playing because there's no kind of cup game, they get a bit moody, get a bit chatty behind the scenes. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. But no, I always like a cup run, and I think it just helps when you have got kind of this 2 players for every position type thing that Ralph wants. It's easier to keep everyone happy, and I still stand by that. But yeah, we just have to see how it plays out. But I think if they keep on churning out good performances, good wins, clean sheets, then there'll be no complaints whatsoever. So that's got to be the way forward.
You're listening to the Total Saints podcast, going to the heart of all things Saints FC.
Yes, I want to be in that number when the Saints go marching in.
Next in the league, it's Aston Villa on Friday night at St Mary's. What have you made of Villa's start to the season, Steve? I know we mentioned this a bit earlier, but it's been up and down, and who knows what Villa team we're going to see on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to look at Jack Grealish is obviously the key ingredient for that football club, and with him gone, you can't replace like for like. And they've tried to replace him with basically 3 players that kind of do a bit of everything. So obviously they've gone for Buendia, Danny Ings, of course, and I can't remember who else they've...
Leon Bailey. That
was the one. Leon Bailey. Bailey's actually been quite impressive. Ings has been all right in fits and starts, scored a couple of goals. One of them was utterly meaningless though. But they've just been a bit meh. I mean, for the amount of money that they've spent, that team should be looking like much more of an organised unit than it is now. I mean, they kind of had the excuse of being sort of newly promoted 2 years ago for why they were struggling. And I mean, ultimately, if the pandemic hadn't struck, they'd have gone straight back down. There's absolutely no way they'd have stayed up because they were just looking absolutely terrible. And but they've kicked on and obviously invested pretty heavily over the last couple of years. Certainly far more than most clubs of sort of around our area of the league table can justify. And yet they're a point below us, which, yeah, I mean, it's kind of surprising, but also, I mean, I wonder whether
it's quite funny as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hilarious given that their fan base thinks they're absolute God's gift. They should be challenging for the title every year, and it's hilarious seeing them sort of constantly whinge. It's like, well, hang on, the last time you were relevant was 1982, which was before I was born. So it's just ridiculous how fans of clubs like that, and I mean Forest are another one, although they've kind of had to temper themselves a little bit because they haven't been in the top flight for 20 years now. But yeah, Villa seem to be one of those sort of sides that on their day they can give anybody a game, but defensively they are liable to basically just turn in one of those performances where they could conceivably concede 5 or 6. Matt Targett was excellent last season for them, and it kind of looks in hindsight as if that was because he had Grealish in front of him for most of the season, and he was there because he knew that Grealish was going to work back and help him out defensively. He was able to bomb on and be quite an attacking fullback or wing back. Whereas now, because Bailey's still getting used to the side and used to the league and things like that, all of a sudden Target's being found out, and he's from what I've seen, he's been absolutely terrible this season.
Well, we've got the momentum going forward. Friday night football at St Mary's, under the lights. It should be a good atmosphere. Whether Danny Ings is available or not, didn't play today because of his hamstring injury.
He won't be.
He might not get the warm welcome that he deserves at St Mary's. Do we keep the same team, Glenn? Any changes for you for Villa?
If Brozier's fit, I'd bring him back in.
Okay.
But I think you pick strikers with confidence, and I'd go with Brozier and Adams if he's going to go with 2 strikers. Those 2 haven't played together yet, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. So I'd be very surprised if Danny Ings is available. Didn't know snakes had hamstrings, but they clearly do. There you go. Been saving that one up. Yeah, I mean, Villa, I mean, everything went through Jack Grealish last year, so Villa have had to remodel the way they play, basically. And he's kind of gone with 2 up front in some games where he's had Ings and Watkins up there, but today he went with sort of like 3 up front with Ings being injured. So I don't know. Dean Smith is a manager I don't like. I find him annoying. He's kind of smug, like like Brendan Rodgers, but without the track record to back it up. They've got some good players. I like Douglas Luiz, and McGinn's a decent player. Mings usually plays well against us, funnily enough, but not against anybody else.
Although he was dropped today, so
he was dropped today, but Konza got sent off, didn't he?
Yeah.
Konza's their best centre half, so he'll be missing against us, which is handy, because that will, I would assume, bring Mings back into the team, or the lad they got on loan from Man United.
Tuanzebe.
So yeah, I mean, I feel we owe Aston Villa for last season after the Matty Cash incident at St Mary's. Matty Cash should have been sent off in both games last year, and he wasn't sent off. He wasn't sent off in either, and it was one of the John Moss specials from last season. But I feel like, personally, I feel like we owe them one, and it would be nice to give them their 5th defeat in a row.
Well, that brings us on to our score predictions. And Dan, you got the Watford score right last week.
Did I go 1-0?
You went 1-0. Yeah, you went 1-0.
I've got a couple of these right now, I think.
Yeah, I think at least 2,
right.
which is better than any of the rest of us. So I'll give you the honour of going first for the Villa game. What do you reckon, Dan?
2-1 Southampton.
Okay. Steve, what are you saying?
We're finally going to work out how to stick the ball between those posts. 3-1.
Confident. Glenn?
2-0.
2-0. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Well, let's hope so. That's about it for episode 174. My thanks, as always, to Steve, to Glenn, and to Dan. Thanks, chaps. Have a great week, won't you?
Will do.
Thank you.
Thanks also to our Matt Letizia tier patrons. That's Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, and Phil Cook, and also Nick Reed in our Francis Benali tier. You can find out more about becoming a TSP patron. Just check out the website where you can join our Bobby Stokes tier for just £5 a month. You can also find all the recent episodes of the Total Saints podcast on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out and hit subscribe. And don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening. On the socials, if you want to join the conversation, it's at Total Saints Pod on Twitter and Facebook, and you can always get in touch with us via the website. Thank you for listening, and have a great week.
'Cause we all